Now, welcome to another edition of News from Naboo with Thor's lightning takes as always. And let's get right to the news.
With Thor's Thunder's Rambles.
Hey.
All right. Today we're going to go back to a topic near and dear to our heart, Andor.
I love Andor. It's been at
really?
least a week.
You love Andor?
Yeah.
Couldn't tell. So today we're kind of going to talk about the season finale director. He kind of discussed his creative approach in being hired to work on the show. The story's coming from Star Wars Newsnet, but the interview is with Collider, I believe. So we know, of course, the Rogue One prequel series wasn't like highly anticipated when it was announced. And everyone was like, "Ugh, Cassian? Really? We know where this goes."
A lot of, who is that? Who? Oh, that guy who dies at the end of Rogue One.
Yeah.
Great.
Why is he getting a show?
Yeah.
And it turned out to be like the best thing of last year.
And maybe in previous years, too?
Maybe. Depends on your stances if The Mandalorian is better than it or not.
Oh, we should do a vote. Mando or Andor?
Mandor.
Just put them together.
Just smack them together. Perfect. We do know that the series went on and earned nominations from the PGA, the WGA, and the SAG, among other organizations, so it wasn't just us who thought it was really good writing.
PGA? I didn't know Andor played golf. Sorry.
You know who would play golf? Mon Mothma's husband. He's that kind of guy who'd be out
my God, yes.
on the space
Perrin.
tee.
Perrin is definitely a member of the local country club and plays golf every weekend with his buddies. Absolutely.
And he bets on the holes because he's got a gambling problem somewhat.
Oh my God, that's what he's like. Who told you down at the club that I was gambling? Well, I didn't say down at the club, Perrin.
Perrin?
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Was it on the greens? The space greens that are probably blue?
Oh, yeah, they would be just blue for the heck of it.
Well, we know that Tony Gilroy, he split the show's first season into different story arcs, which turned out to be a wild success, with each separate arc being directed by different filmmakers. Which is funny how they all still had a very cohesive,
Yeah, they didn't feel like they were coming from different...
That's because
the
Tony
vision
Gilroy
behind,
still wrote all of it. But the story arcs were each praised for their unique qualities because they each brought different and new things to the tables, different emotions. It was fantastic that way. And then there was that finale when Cassian's deceased mother, Marva, rallied all of Ferrix to rise up and fight the Empire, which was very moving. But in hindsight, I guess it's easy when you're dead to tell other people to die.
Well, she even said that.
Yeah, she did. She did say
At least she was honest about it.
She was very honest.
It's easy for me to say this. I'm dead, but you guys should go fight and risk your lives now. That was one of 5 powerful moments in that episode. Not to mention
just that episode.
Just that episode, yeah. I mean, not to mention epic speeches. Every episode had its own little epic speech.
Luthen had epic speech. Kino's epic speech. Marva's epic speech.
There's another vote. God, could have so many fun votes with this. My vote goes to Luthen though. Luthen just. Skarsgård just something about his delivery too.
Kino's speech, it was so filled with hope and desperation. They all had so many moments.
Yeah.
So many moments.
I still have to go with. I love Kino. Everybody knows I love Kino. I would have jumped into the ocean to try to save him.
Oh boy.
But I think Luthen took the cake. Which isn't to say Marva's wasn't, equally as inspiring and good.
Oh, hers was excellent.
Yeah, hers kind of started in actual rebellion, so.
It did. People got bricked because of Marva.
Well,
Marva.
I was just going to say, she was part of that brick.
She was. On to the interview here. Collider spoke with the Andor director, Benjamin Kahn, as part of the press tour for his new film, Sharper. I'm going to call him Ben. We're close now, I guess. Ben helmed the series' 7th episode, as well as the 2-part season finale. And he spoke with what it felt like working on a big-budget series that initially didn't get much attention from fans. He says, at the time, there wasn't really a lot of heat on Andor. This massive show was being made in Pinewood, but people had somehow forgotten about it.
I know, that's the funny thing. It's by far, I think, the biggest production so far of the Disney Plus shows.
Yes.
And it got the least amount of attention. Nobody would. Well, I don't want to say nobody, but
nobody watched it except us.
Not literally. No. I'm not saying nobody watched it. I was going to say nobody was talking about it before. It was kind of that show, oh yeah, that's coming. Maybe it'll be good. I hope it'll be good.
And then we saw the first trailer. We're like, what is this?
This could be good.
What is that guy playing the anvil?
I never doubted. I actually I have high hopes for everything though, so that's not saying much. I thought Boba Fett was
there
a
were
sure
shows
hit.
you did not have. Rebels. I know you going into Rebels. You did not have high hopes because you kept telling me over and over again before that show. You're like, this show's gonna be stupid.
That is.
And I said, no, you give it a chance.
No, that's not what I said. What I was worried about with Rebels is after Clone Wars, which got really mature in the later seasons. This was gonna be on Disney XD, and I'm like, they're not gonna kill anybody on the show. Mm-hmm. It's going to be like the old cartoons. Like,
they kill
anybody
people.
remembers watching like G.I. Joe back in the 80s? Like, people would parachute out of tanks. There'd be like laser fights. They'd be 5 feet apart and nobody would get shot. That's what I thought Rebels was going to be. Thankfully, not exactly the case. There were times when you would think someone would die and you'd see the stormtrooper kind of rolling around as if he's still alive. But they certainly killed plenty of people.
Those are death throws, don't you know anything?
Yeah. Plus, Ezra mind controlled that stormtrooper and like had him walk off the AT. I'm like, wow. That's awesome.
Oh,
so I was wrong about Rebels, but that was my fear. I didn't think Rebels was going to suck as much as I thought it would be. Just too childish.
There were some critics and viewers who noted and were upset that Andor didn't include many references to other Star Wars projects. I mean, we get Mon Mothma, Saw Gerrera, and of course Cassian himself, but the show focused mainly on its own storytelling leading up to the film. Ben says that the lack of familiarity with the saga's recent history was not a deal breaker for Tony Gilroy, who, as we very well know. But here's what he said. You have to bear in mind, I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan. I don't mean that in any sort of mean way. From a kid, I was, but I just maybe fell out of love with it, or I sort of haven't followed up in it in my later years. And I declared that to Tony really early on. I said, look, Tony, if this is a question about what's been going on in Star Wars recently, I have no idea. I'll happily go and watch the last few films, but I haven't seen them. And he was like, no, that's great. We don't want fan service. I'm aware of your work, and I like your work, and I want that work in Andor. And so that's how that came about.
You didn't watch the sequel trilogy? You're hired.
I do love that attitude of Tony Gilroy. Oh, well, that's fine. I don't care if you know Star Wars or like Star Wars. I like your work. Yeah. And that's what I want to see in Star Wars.
I've always said before, you should know Star Wars to at least some degree, but I think I was kind of proven wrong by Andor. Though they do, it's not like...
You need somebody to know Star Wars in the vicinity, but that just doesn't need to affect the storytelling and the... Well, it does in some respects, but it doesn't need to affect every aspect of the show. The whole show isn't meant to be fan service. It does have nods here and there, and of course the set dressers had a field day.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it stands on its own as a good show.
It has a lot of nods and kind of fan service-y moments, but they're not blatant. Well, some of them are kind of blatant, but they're really just pure fun and don't really affect the story at all.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm excited for years and years from now when people are showing Star Wars to the next generation and they show them Andor before Rogue One.
That would be cool.
Wouldn't it? Because you're going to see Saw. You're going to see... You know, you're going
to be really interesting to see. I mean, to be able to kind of erase Rogue One from your mind and not know what happens to Cassian potentially, and just not know the whole story. And because one of the biggest complaints about Rogue One is character development. So and one of the biggest strengths of Andor, the series, is character development. So you put those two together, and you have quite a story. Especially if you don't know.
I'm very interested to see how that would go in the future. People who haven't seen Rogue One, who doesn't know what happens to him, to see this show beforehand, see his development, see how this rebellion is moving along through these dark times, and boom, Rogue One hits, and they really see the explosion of things they've been watching.
Yeah, someday, 20, 30 years from now, when we can just erase people's memories, I want all Star Wars taken out from me, and then you just put me down and put a chronological order in front of me.
I don't think you would.
No, I would never.
Not unless you could actually have it put back in you after you were done.
Yes. Just pull a 3PO, dig up my old memory bank from, before you did that. But then I would lose my experience.
You might not lose your experience. Whatever, you weirdo. All right, so next, Ben kind of revealed that it was Tony Gilroy's writing that convinced him to direct for the series. Many commenters have mentioned Andor's darker, street-level view of the Star Wars universe when discussing the show, and that perspective proved enticing for him. He said, I hadn't read anything like that for a long time, and I sort of forgot it was Star Wars. There's no lightsabers, there was no Darth Vader, there was none of the Force. It was just really well drawn-out narratives and great characters that I just wanted to spend time with. That's what I responded to. That's where it all started. And then when we were filming, I just approached it like anything else I do. You just direct it.
That's what directors do. No, I agree with him. It's not good because it's Star Wars, and that's impressive.
Good because it's good. Because the writing is good. Because they didn't try to cater to anyone. They wrote a story and they stayed true to their own story.
Yes, but they didn't try to overtly make it not Star Wars at the same time, which I think is the real key. It's not like they went in there like, okay, we don't really want this to feel like Star Wars. No, we're going to tell you a really good story, and we're going to make sure we put the elements in there that do make it feel like Star Wars. So the background is very much Star Wars, but the forefront is it's just its own story.
I mean, droids, the brutality of the Empire, all of that stuff. They still kept all of the Star Wars elements. They just took out.
They didn't try to make it Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest gripes I have about, other Star Wars properties is they try to overtly make it like Star Wars.
You missed that scene where Darth Vader came and toured Narkia? Where he just, had a day walking through the prisons, standing on overlooking Cassian's workstations. Well, I mean,
we joke, but that would have been some writers would have done that. They would have been like, "Oh, the surprise visitor is going to be Darth Vader because he's got nothing better to do but to inspect this random facility."
I know. We were all thinking in the first, in the Aldani arc, we were all like, "Oh, there's somebody coming. Who's it going to be? It's going to be someone we know. Is it going to be Callus? Ooh, would it be Thrawn? Oh my goodness, could it be Krennic? It's probably Director Krennic overseeing a mining operation.
Hey, Krennic would work.
Krennic probably would have worked, but it was almost better that they just didn't.
Because he wouldn't do that. Like, really, if you're...
Well, and they planned on killing him.
I mean, if you're Krennic, like, are you going to, delegate that to someone else? Or are you going to, I want to go visit that one Aldani place? Well, he might.
Himself. He would have
he might be like, oh, there's that Star show going on. But no, he wouldn't even do that. He wouldn't go. He's only going where he needs to go.
Well, based on the fantastic response to Andor's final episodes, it's safe to say that Ben's filmmaking choices helped result in that strong season finale. His final notes on how he viewed the series are, for me, it was a spy thriller. It was a thriller. Tony Gilroy. I mean, I love Bourne, but it was a spy thriller. That's what I lent into. Yes, it was in the Star Wars universe, but it was a spy thriller first. So I lent into that kind of tone and mood.
Yeah. That's what we keep saying. It was its own story first, and it just happened to be in Star Wars.
Yeah. I mean, the show's positive reviews, it got more and more hyped up, more attention as it went along, which really tells you something. A show that came from everyone going, okay, yep, Andor, no one cares, to, oh my god, that show is phenomenal. Everyone needs to see it. It's amazing.
No, I agree.
Everyone loved the Star Wars spy thriller.
Go figure.
Sadly, my boy Ben here, you won't be returning to direct any in the second season, but we do still have 12 more episodes coming next year to enjoy. If for some reason it gets delayed, I would still forgive it, because if it was delayed, that means they needed to make sure everything was perfect.
Next year always sounds more painful when it's early in the new year. It's like February, and it's like, next year. Because you're still in your mind thinking there's that part of you that's like, oh yeah, that next year means no, but next year means next year.
Next year means next year.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's all we got for you this time. So do take to the comments below. Tell us what you think of today's story. And let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.